You hear the stories. The cold spots, the fleeting shadow, the bump in the night. But what if those aren't just spooky tales? What if they're pieces of a larger puzzle? Pieces connected by human experience, emotion, and memory. I'm Tiffany, a paranormal investigator and psychic medium. Here on Beyond Logic with Tiffany, we're stepping past the fear. We're not just hunting ghosts, we're seeking to humanize the paranormal, connect with the spirits, find compelling evidence, and finally connect the dots that link our world and the next. This is Beyond Logic with Tiffany. Hey everybody, I'm here with Parker. He is an author of, I believe it's the Star. Oh, you're gonna have to say it. I'm sorry. Your
I have,
your series.
yes, hello. My name is Parker LaVitte, and I am the author of the Lightning War Saga. We currently have two novels out, Grounding Unit, which is volume 1, and Spawn of a Storm, which is volume 2. And I'm currently working on volume 3 as I speak.
Awesome. So what got you into, well, let's, I guess, start with the topic of your books, because I know what the topic is, but obviously everybody else isn't going to be familiar with it. So why don't you start with what they're about?
Um, so the Lightning War Saga, like the franchise as a whole, encapsulates lore revolving around both like the Illuminati and conspiracies, as well as psychic powers and the government's attempts to utilize them in the real world. It was called the Stargate Project. I believe it was during like 70s, 80s. It was a Cold War thing, but it is an alternate history type thing, but it's set in present day, in which a secret sixth branch of the military, the United States Paranormal Combat Force, or USPSA for short, is fighting a war against the Illuminati, and focuses on a group of 5 teenagers who are on the front lines of this war, fighting with their psychic powers.
Okay, awesome. So what kind
Yes.
of got you interested in that stuff? I mean, did you research the Gateway Project that kind of sparked this idea, or were you always interested in things that were kind of paranormal?
Um, I I got a bit of a paranormal phase around like sophomore year of high school. My family thought it was a little weird, so I didn't really hang on to it very long. But I always thought it was cool, and like I my degree is in engineering. Like I do like science, but like I know a lot of people view this as magic, and I was kind of one of the few paranormal people that kind of saw this as like the fringes of science. Like it can be observed, but it can't necessarily be studied yet. So I had a lot of interest in this. This was kind of okay, like what is causing these phenomena? Like why can these people, clearly sense something they should not be able to sense? So it always kind of mystified me. And at the same time, my father was big into war movies. Like we grew up watching, Saving Private Ryan, Glory, like a lot of those films, and like he did a lot of like World War II like reading growing up, and that kind of that interest kind of got passed down to me. So it was like I had interest in like war history as well as in the paranormal, and then when I learned about this Stargate project, I was thinking, hey, you could do something with this, something really cool.
Okay. Yeah, so the Gateway Project is what started the Stargate Project, which obviously focuses on children. Do you feel that kids are more in tune with their abilities that are already like they're born with them, and as they
Um,
develop, they kind of lose it?
yes, absolutely, and that's actually one of the reasons uh the Lightning War focuses on the age groups it does. In my universe, you can actually join this branch of the military when you were 15, and most age out of it around the time they're about 25, because kids, like, more or less confirmed, have stronger a stronger sixth sense, and also served as like means for me to really show, like, you know I've gotten comments like, oh, we don't need teenagers in the military. I'm like, oh, I got bad news for you if that's what you think. Like,
So you get backlash because of the age range that you're focusing on, is what you're saying.
I am, but like at the same time, I'm trying to really like get the like reader thinking, like, putting an 18-year-old through this really isn't much better than putting a 15-year-old through this, and it allowed me to both like show that we are exposing people to the brutality of war at younger ages, and how like some of these people that are paying the price don't really like, their brains are not fully developed, and at the same time allowed me to like you know use those like fun high school age characters. And I mean, they're teenagers, they're funny, there is some comic relief pertaining to that.
Okay. So, from your research, then, from like the Gateway Project and the Stargate Project, have you determined like that it's the development of the frontal lobe that changes people's perceptions, or just being conditioned to life? Because, I mean, most people don't, like you said, your family was, kind of I don't want to say against it, but or people think it's kind of weird. Do you think it's because we get conditioned to not allow ourselves to believe in that stuff anymore because of everybody else's perceptions that we lose it, or is it the development of the lobes that changes that?
um I think it's definitely a bit of both. I think some people are just like more in tune than others, and some it could come and it could go. And also I feel like society tells us what like sensory stimuli and like feelings are and are not important, so we just learn through that, like oh, ignore that hunch or gut feeling you might have had there. Or, if you're in the weird creepy house and you hear a voice, it's just the wind. I mean, people tell you that, but like believing differently can also affect your perception of things in both ways.
Do you think brain chemistry has anything to do with that, as far as like trauma or damage, like from a um, injury, stuff like that? Do you think that has anything to do with it?
um I think it absolutely could. For me personally, I am neurodivergent, I have ADHD, and one of the symptoms I have is visual snow. It's a sensory processing thing. I basically see like TV static over everything I look at. It's mostly benign, but growing up, one of the things that I thought, might have set me apart is that sometimes I see shapes in it. Like I remember one time I was just coming back into this room to get something the other night, and I look and it looks like there's like just like a ball of like blue noise just sitting there, and it could have just been, you know, my fault. I don't want to say faulted, like flawed sensory processing, or maybe I was processing something that most people wouldn't be able to see. Who knows?
I mean, it could be a bit of both, I think. I mean, one of my theories that I'm kind of working on and developing myself just from talking to so many people is that people that have like PTSD or depression, or like you say in your case, neurodivergent, or somebody that has had trauma to their brain, is a little bit more apt to see things and feel things differently than, and actually have abilities than people that aren't unfortunate enough to have the PTSD and stuff like that. I mean, obviously being neurodivergent isn't really an unfortunate characteristic, but their brains operate differently, just as you do if you have PTSD or a brain injury.
Yes, and I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because one of my characters, who is like a recurring main character, you'll see her in all four books. Her name is Kiki, and like me, she has ADHD, and because of it, like her psychic abilities like work a little differently from these other characters. Like she has no like access to her like psychokinesis, like no hydrokinesis, no electrokinesis. She can't do any of that, but her abilities are more like intuitive and perceptive. And like as you spend more time with her, you'll see that some of these like crazy impulses that she's just snapping to, like they're not, it's not just Murphy's law. She's having these impulses for a reason, having these hunches for a reason.
Right. I mean, I feel like that's how most people that have or say that they have abilities operate. It's an knowing but unknowing how you got it.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
so I
just,
yeah, go ahead.
oops, go ahead. Nope, go on.
Oh no, so yeah, like what I did with those characters, and I have another character in the third book right now who is autistic, and his telekinesis works a little differently, because of it. But I was kind of in tune with this idea that like our brains all work differently, and USPICF as a whole like focuses on that with their decision making. They'll be like, oh, it's not like take these kids, like break them down and build them back up into the same exact thing. They bring them in, they're different, and it's more like, okay, like this person has this skill set, this person has this skill set, what can we get out of that?
Right. So when you did your research and you kind of came up with this idea and these theories in your head, how did the Gateway Project actually influence you? Like, do you think that they were right to take kids and start essentially testing them, or do you think that they should have went about it in a different way?
Oh, that I think what happened is completely unethical, and like what I wrote about is unethical as well. I mean, these are kids. You shouldn't be, performing these experiments on them. I mean, like, let them be kids. I mean, whether or not psychic phenomena is, a legit thing or not, like it's wrong to use children for like government research. That just how I see it.
That's fair. Oh, okay. So how much of it do you actually believe can come to fruition from this stuff? Like, do you write about it, or do you think about like the experiments that were done, and do you think they just were like so outlandish that they couldn't exist, or do you think that these things actually can occur in real life?
I think there's definitely a lot that the government does that they're like not telling us about. Just a bit of context. I live in Dayton, Ohio. We have Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, biggest Air Force base in the world, fairly close by. And like I've heard stories about like some of the stuff that comes out of there just around town. There's definitely a lot of rumors flying around, and some of them are pretty crazy. So it would not shock me at all if psychic phenomena in some capacity were being used by the military today.
Well, not even just militaristic wise, but just in general. Like,
Military, police, anything. Um, I've actually I've told my partner this story. I know my dad, like in his younger years, he had it's, it's been a while since I've heard the story, and he's no longer around to verify details, so it could be totally wrong, but bear with me. He his friend's dad was like out boating and went missing, so the police started looking for him. They couldn't find him, and then later in the day they were getting frustrated, so they got a psychic involved, and the psychic said, "You will find your father in a mirror under a tree." And like my dad and his friend just kind of walked away rolling their eyes like what the hell does that mean? And then later that evening they found him. The dad had like gone over a dam, like drowned, he died, and his body was found uh tangled in the vines of a willow tree that were like hanging over the surface of the water, a little bit downstream. And when they found him, like the water was very smooth and it was reflective, and he was tangled up in the tree, so that was the mirror in the tree. And the story always gave me chills.
yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a lot of mediums use symbolism, so sometimes it doesn't always make sense until it makes sense. So that's a really unfortunate but very cool story.
It is. And the way I kind of went about it in my book is that at least per the magic system, you're like remote viewing, or you have a dream or something, you are viewing it in kind of a dream-like space, like when you go in a room, like sometimes like this corner might be in that corner or something. It's not going to be like a one-to-one recreation in the dream versus in real life, but you'll be able to look at the place and see what it is. And the better you get at your remote viewing, the more accurate your vision is going to be.
That makes sense, and that's essentially how I operate. My I guess we'll call them visions aren't always 100% accurate, but um, there's been plenty of instances where I've definitely been like, oh wow, that's really cool. Because there's just certain things that I can't explain that happen. And like that person said, that psychic said, it's not, sometimes it's just symbolism. So it's really neat how it works.
Yeah, you got to be like open to interpretation, and maybe, I mean, what you could see like could get distorted to the point where it's unintelligible, or but maybe that's not the case. Maybe what you dreamt about, what you thought you saw, like that impulse you had, maybe there was some truth to it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing that I looked at the government like messed with was electrokinesis, like the psychic control of electricity. They wanted to use it to mess with like Soviet missiles and computer systems and like sensitive electronics. That definitely made its way into my book. Sorry.
See, now that would be really cool if that could come to fruition. Now that would be helpful, I think.
Yes, I'm like I have a character who's able to use his electrokinesis to knock a fighter jet out of the sky and it blows up, and that it's cool stuff. I mean, I don't know if we were able to do it to that extent in real life, but I mean, it made it into the book, so we have that.
It's kind of given me Stranger Things vibes.
I've definitely been given a lot of like, comparison to Stranger Things, which is funny because I had the idea in like 2010 when I was in high school, like 4 years before Stranger Things was even a thing.
I mean, yeah, no, I'm not saying that you that was mimicked at all. I was just saying
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
that's just the vibe I get. So it's really neat that it's kind of come that far.
Yeah, there's similar media, and I feel like Stranger Things might have like ushered in like another genre, like both before it and now, like kind of like paranormal sci-fi almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Like Stranger Things wasn't the first; it was the first to really get popular. But I feel like you know what was once strictly magic and what was once strictly sci-fi, like the line's a little bit blurred now, and it's blurred in the Lightning War series for sure.
I think that oh, I just blanked on the series that I'm thinking of. Oh my gosh, and I can see them in my head, but I can't articulate the words that I'm looking for.
Mm.
Oh my goodness gracious. It'll come to me when it doesn't matter. But either who way, that's kind of I mean now it doesn't make sense, so I guess just gonna change the subject. Um, I can't because it's still in my head. Oh my gosh.
You need help, like streaming service or like actors, any.
They're books that were turned into movies, like most
Mm.
things. Oh my gosh. And I just watched the trailer for it when I went to the movies a couple weeks ago. Ugh. Wow, I'm so having a brain fart. This is terrible. The Hunger Games.
Yes,
That was
I'm a
like
big fan of the series.
it kind of gives like there was the first one that was more focused on kids rather than adults.
Yes, yes.
That got major, I feel like in a sense.
Yeah, I like the death game genre. I'm actually working on a separate book right now that is like an Amazing Race death game almost, but yeah, Hunger Games is a good franchise, and I'm a big fan of it just because same reason I like Squid Game. But like the
That was
social commentary is good, and like that probably influenced like some of the more political messaging in my writing.
gotcha. Squid Games were nuts. They were definitely, I mean, it was a decent show, but it was not what I expected when I first started watching it, which
I
I guess
remember
is good and bad all in the same sense, but
yeah, one of my friends just told me to watch this, and the next thing I know, there's like blood all over the place, and they're playing red light green. I'm like, what the hell did you get me into?
yeah, I was very taken aback in the first 10 minutes of watching that show. But the storyline was cool and how they kind of interjected it into like a real life scenario was kind of neat, but
Mhm. Yeah, and actually, I'm glad, like, just on the subject of like both of them. One other like issue that I broached with this is that these kids are being told that they're going to like a special military academy, at least around their parents, so their parents don't necessarily know they're enlisting them, to fly off to their slaughter or whatever, because of how secretive this government stuff is, at least in the first two books.
mhm.
Mm.
Do you think it's better or worse that parents aren't informed fully? If this were to come to fruition, would you rather have parents be signing off on things or keeping them in the dark and then just have to find out? What do you think would be worse?
Personally, I think the whole thing is barbaric, and it's made clear in the writing they shouldn't be, plucking 15-year-olds out of school under false pretenses. I mean, I'll be honest, like the reason it's wrong that they don't tell the parents is that kids that age can't necessarily, make their own decisions very well. So, like, they should at least be informed of what's going on, and no parents going would knowingly agree to put their kid through what's going on in these stories.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but the Stargate project was essentially that, right? They were doing it
Hmm.
during school hours and the parents really had no idea, at least to my knowledge.
Yes. Yeah. Trying to think what else. And you'll see that in the third book because like it's no longer top secret. Like people know that like we have psychic super soldiers in the book that I'm currently working on, and you'll see like radio interviews with parents. I mean, like that, like I sent my son to military school because I didn't want him to be a pyromaniac, and then the next thing I know, I'm getting his ashes mailed back to me.
So it's essentially for troubled youth, is what you're saying, not necessarily just everyone.
It's for everyone, but like including troubled youth. Like they'll I mean, I actually like got to talk to a recruiter when I was in high school. It was a total mistake. The story's kind of funny, but what I gathered is like when you're speaking to these people, they'll pull whatever mental gymnastics they can to get you to agree with what you know they're inviting you to do. It's very psychological, and so, sometimes the jumps they make are pretty big, and that's kind of I mean I knew I wouldn't make a good Marine, but I told the guy I was going for engineering. He's like, "Oh, you can be an engineer in the Marines, get your diesel." I'm like, I like being like doing what I wanted to do versus like working on cars. Like it's very different. But he was still trying to, tie whatever whatever I needed, whatever my future plans were, into his agenda. And it happens in real life, but especially in the story.
Oh yeah, it happens all the time. Unfortunately, that's how most people get into it and they realize that it's not what they're being promised, but
Mhm. And
uh,
actually, another one of my characters, Blake, like there is a very direct nod to this experience in the story because he wanted to be an engineer and he ended up joining the military, because he wanted to work on weapons.
oh,
And he
okay.
thought he was getting like a lifelong career out of this, and that's not at all what happened.
Right.
Mhm.
So all of your books are essentially just not necessarily what you feel can happen in real life, but what could happen if it were to be a thing then. Like you don't have
Um,
an opinion one way or the other of whether like these things really exist in life, or am I misunderstanding?
oh, sir. We have to go to the flip side, like who were the bad guys to get to that. But absolutely, there are commentaries on like our world as it stands right now and how it would look. Like we do have a military, like they're probably up to some sketchy stuff. I don't know, but I mean, if it's not psychic abilities, it's probably something equally crazy. But they're the other, like kind of the other half to the story. I'd say, I mean, you have your heroes. You also have to have your villains, your antagonists. And for that, I selected the Illuminati. After I worked third shift when I was in college, and I would stay up at 3 in the morning, and I would get into the weird part of YouTube. Like watching conspiracy theory videos at 1 in the morning, and that's kind of what inspired that. But as I kept watching more and more, I kept realizing that this whole like message of there's this shadowy elite that is secretly controlling society, like especially now. I mean, just flip on the news, like it exists right now, but it's not under the Illuminati. It's it's religions, it's influence, it's rich people, it's like underhanded ties that maybe should not exist. And
So how would you differentiate that from the Illuminati then? I mean, it's essentially the same thing.
exactly. And I really, the only way I differentiated it is through symbolism. A lot of like both branches of the Illuminati in the story, Freemasonry and Bohemians, both of them were more or less like modeled after like Christian nationalism. And like I looked at the Islamic State a lot and other groups that like operate with the intent of like forcing their religion's values on other people to an extreme extent. And all I really did was change the symbolism. So like the only difference between ISIS and the Illuminati is that one of them like what one of them practices Islam and the other one worships Baphomet. But it's like just switch the symbolism out. That's all you need to do.
I'm talking like in real life settings though. Like how would you differentiate the Illuminati from what's going on in the world today? Like if I mean, there's nothing that says that they're not part of that aside from maybe just not saying it.
Exactly, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get to. Like, we basically have it in the world. It's just under a different name. So, like, I was talking pretty directly about like how the upper class is right now in some things I did. Um,
Yeah. So do you think that the Illuminati is like, we'll just go with the Epstein files. Do you think he was part of the Illuminati or he is part of it?
I wouldn't say he was necessarily part of the like the original Bavarian Illuminati. I think he was probably part of something, equally bad that might exist that we don't know about. Um, I also know that there are organizations that claim to be continuations of the original Illuminati that you can ask to join via email. Um, what I want to know about the Epstein files that they haven't shown yet is the temple on the island, and there's actually a raid on an island at the end of the first book, and that was like heavily inspired by Jeffrey Epstein's island, like temple and everything. So, well, I don't necessarily think religion might have been the motivation. It could have been money. It could have been lots of things, but I do believe like what's going on in the world is equivalent to just not a name.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you don't believe that it, so just because they're not naming it as such, you don't believe that it's the same thing?
Um, yes and no. Like I do think it's the same thing. I do think it deserves to be talked about, like honestly, as for what it is. But like I think there's a certain like Hollywood like level aspect to it that and I leaned into for the book to make it entertaining. That maybe that isn't there. So like I think it's worth talking about as long as we don't sensationalize it, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, that's going to happen regardless. You're going to have people that are going to want to be a part of power, which is essentially what everything is stemmed from. So I guess my question that
Mm,
I'm trying to lead into is, do you
sorry.
feel like the people that were targeted were people that may have been quote unquote special in some way, and that's why they were targeted? I mean, granted, there was mass numbers of these people, but we don't know what people have abilities and which ones don't.
I've actually never thought of that. That's a very good way to put it. I think they probably like just got whoever they could, and maybe under the pretenses of this kid's special, or just we can get this person. Like I think those in power will do whatever it takes to manipulate whoever they can, and because they have so much power, there's a lot they can do.
That's fair. See,
Mhm.
my mind's always turning, and I'm always wondering the what ifs and the whys. And when there's no rhyme or reason as to why these people were picked, because there's really no simple characteristic that was consistent again amongst all of these people. It was legitimately a variety of people.
And I
That's
always wondered that too.
that's kind of where my thought processes go. I mean, with everything else going on in the world, especially with like witchcraft being banned or whatever you want to say, tarot, whatever the case may be, there's a lot of things that have been around since ancient times that are now just becoming banned or scared of things that were never really highlighted before all of this stuff came out. And I'm just kind of wondering if it's all correlated.
That is a good point, honestly. Um, like my writing was like I leaned into the symbolism heavily to just like liken this to that, through symbolism only. So I could honestly see that being a thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I was just talking about you personally, not necessarily of what was, going on in your books.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I don't know why people are, I, I, I don't know why people are so scared of stuff. I really don't. I mean, is it taboo? Yes, but like, do we really need to ban tarot cards? I mean, it's a deck of cards. It's not going to hurt you.
What makes it taboo?
Um, well, just I know, like, especially growing up in the Bible Belt, like I do, like a lot of people view things like that as like witchcraft or evil, like Satanism. Like I have a friend who lives around here. He is terrified of Ouija boards.
That's fair. I like to dig, and if you really go into Christianity and everything else, paganism influenced a lot of what Christian belief is.
Absolutely, yes.
So I
And,
just find it interesting.
yeah, a lot of people like to like claim like doctrinal purity when it comes to their religion and don't really realize that it's not just one book. Like their history goes way before that book was written. There were like prior religions that contributed to that. There's mythology, there's archaeology, like a lot of it went into that. And I don't think everybody like fully realizes. I mean, I do because I'm a nerd for this stuff, but
So I mean, it's up to you, but if you also have gone on a couple paranormal investigations with your significant other, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
we've gone on like two or three, I'd say. Like we're she's just now getting me back into it now. Like, I mean, don't live in a household with a bunch of other engineers, so I can let my imagination run a little wild and see what I can find. But it's been a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed it so far. There are other places we want to go.
So how, with the way that your brain operates more on like a scientific level, do you think that affects how you go into those places?
um I do, and I laugh because I remember when she took us to like to our first haunted place. We went to Villisca, Iowa, which I believe she talked about when she was on this show not too long ago. I walked in and I start like looking around and filming, and she's walking in like introducing herself and like talking to these kids like hi, we're going to be staying in your house for the night. Thank you for having us. And I'm just upstairs with the camera asking like, is anyone there? Can anyone hear me? And then I'm just in the bedroom and I hear what is very clearly an axe handle knocking three times against the wall. I and that's when I realized this isn't like it isn't something you can observe or with a scientific method per se. Because I mean, I learned that night that they don't like being treated as subjects. They're still people even though they're dead, and like even if you're like doing a legitimate study, you still have to have respect for that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that you can't really go in with a scientific method because I feel like that's how most of us as investigators do go into it.
Yeah, yes, and like to an extent it is, but like I think the scientific method just needs like how should I say rewritten to like have like set rules for handling these things because I mean you can't like set something up and ask them okay like knock that over, like they're just going to do whatever they want. So you have to be a bit looser and a bit more open minded with what you were seeing. And, however, like I do think the most scientific thing I think I did was trying to recreate things that happened over the night and like measuring things and like trying to get to the bottom of it. But like once you've done that and like once you've seen like the proof that this could not have happened naturally, like what to do after that, like it's a bit different than it is in engineering.
Right, because engineering is everything in its place and it is how it is, essentially.
Hmm.
With
And mhm.
It's just interesting to me to see how, because like obviously you still have science and certain things still need to happen to make a certain outcome. So when you do like a paranormal investigation, while there is science involved in a certain aspect, it's a completely different side of it. So it's interesting to kind of get your perspective from it. That's kind
Hmm.
of where I was going.
Yeah, the way I've always viewed that exact issue, I mean, since I was, a teenager that was into the paranormal and wanted to major in engineering, was that it's not like it's not hokey, it's not, fairy tales. Like it could exist, but it exists in a way that we can't understand what's happening yet. with the tools we have. Maybe in the future we will.
So I'm going to throw you my theory a little bit, kind of. So
Okay.
we all know that energy never dies.
Yes.
Do you feel that, how do I word this? Depending on like the kind of energy. I mean, obviously there's several different kinds of energy. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but do you think that that energy dissipates over time and that's why some places are a little more active as far as hauntings than others?
As for why places are active and why they aren't, that I don't really have an answer to. My theory could be like if what happened had a lot of like emotionally like charged context to it. Like I've noticed like that seems to be, the catalyst for keeping the place active a little bit longer than, say somewhere else. Um, but I do believe like the energy never dies. I do believe the energy that makes the paranormal phenomena happen, you know, is there and it's not dying, and it's just a different type of energy that we can't fully measure yet or understand.
So this is strictly personal, and it's something I really don't think I've ever really talked about on my podcast before.
Yes.
Do you think that the energy is the soul, or do you think that a soul is something completely separate to the energy?
Um, I think a soul is more the soul is what we know of a person, and I don't think that's necessarily what they leave behind. Like what they leave behind, I think is something different. Like the soul is more like an abstract concept. Like that's what like in the context of like a religion, like that's what you would talk about there. I think in like paranormal investigation, it's something else.
Okay.
I
So
mean,
the
like way
idea of, oh, go ahead.
like the way I think about it, I mean, like I'm 31 years old. Like I've had, close family members pass away. And like recently we actually like thought like one of them might have moved something at my mother's house, which was like it was very emotional for me. Like I'd been wanting that to happen and it did, but I don't like when I think of, like what was your father's soul like, I don't think knocking a decoration off the refrigerator like I when I think of that, I think, like I think the nice guy that could cook and like to travel and had the messed up sense of humor and would complain about the World Cup referees with me, like that was my father's soul, and that's just something we get to know. What knocked that Eiffel Tower off the refrigerator, like it was my dad, but it was a little different.
Okay, I can resonate with that.
Mhm.
So we need kinetic energy basically to move energy. Do
Yes.
you, so how would the energy left behind produce that kinetic energy? So I mean, obviously, like when we have a body,
Hmm.
we have muscles and things like that that are forcing everything to move.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up. In the book, the way I illustrated this was by there are two astral planes, a light one and a dark one, that gradually flow energy like into ours that most people can't interact with. Psychics can. And when they are able to like mentally combine the light and dark astral energy, that forms kinetic or thermal or electrical or like biological energy. Like it's the combination of two like quote unquote unreal energies into something that is terrestrial. Um and that's just like the way I wrote it into a magic system. I think in real life it might work somewhat similarly to that, maybe with like one kind of energy we don't know that is you know that is converted. And I also feel like Keeley told me that they have limited energy, the ghosts, and
Mhm.
I saw this in that ghost house. It's well known that especially in the kids room that your phone can just outright drain for no reason, and it happened to me. Like we
Oh
walked in there.
yeah.
I hadn't had anything happen when I was up there alone the previous day, but when we walk in, she starts complaining that she's cold, and uh like she says like she can feel kids around her, and I'm like, well, like why aren't they interacting with me? And then I felt something tug the back of my shirt. So And I'm like, okay, where'd this come from? Well, then we walk out of that room. My phone had gone from 24% to 2%.
Oh yeah, spirits definitely take energy from anything that is emitting energy, whether that be us or
Mhm.
our electronic devices or anything like that. I fully believe that. And that's
Yeah,
how they
so
gain their energy to, do some of these things.
yeah, so I feel like it might be converted, like, you know, between like the electrical energy that was in my phone to the kinetic energy that pulled the back of my shirt. I feel like it might have, done some crazy energy gymnastics that we don't yet understand. But I do think in the end that is what happened.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm. While we were asleep that night, like we were getting ready to go to bed, and like she had left something in the car, so I go to get it, and so I go to get my keys, and I placed my keys on a rocking chair next to a nightstand that had pictures of two of the Stillinger girls that were murdered in the house. Ina and Lena were on this nightstand, and Ina's picture had been tipped over. So, and both of us screamed. It was very terrifying. I'm not gonna lie. Um, but when I reenacted it the next morning, like I set both pictures up. I rammed our bedroll into it. I shook it. I did everything I could to make it fall exactly the way it had fallen, and it would fall backwards, but it wouldn't fall forwards as we had found it. So I don't even know if we didn't hear it fall, we didn't see it fall. I honestly don't know how it happened. But maybe it wasn't energy at all that moved it, as crazy as that sounds. Like maybe it just you know like flipped instantly or something. We didn't see it, so
Do
I
you
mean, if
think that, oops, go ahead.
unless we observed how it fell, like we don't know that picture didn't come to life, fly around the room, and then land flat on its face. We don't know.
Right. When you went to this place, or if you want to talk about Velisca or any of the other places that you guys have been, did you
Yes.
go in knowing any of this information? Obviously Velisca is very well known. Everybody pretty much knows what happened, um, and that it's unsolved, all of that stuff. But did you have any preconceived notions of anything else? Like, did you research the place before you went? I don't like researching the place before I go. I'm actually heading to Velisca soon. Um, and I
Oh,
just
have
know the
fun.
bare minimum. Thanks.
Yeah,
But do you
yeah,
go
you're
ahead.
gonna love it. With me, like I mentioned, I was with my partner, and this is a case that she's been obsessed with from a very young age. So, like, I mean, like I'd done all my homework, on it, just mostly through her because I wanted to understand this case because it was special to her. And we listened to a bunch of podcasts and stuff on the drive, and it was honestly a lot of fun. So I did research that place very thoroughly. I knew the entire story going into it, and it was cool. However, back in August, we went to the Mansfield Reformatory here in Ohio. I'm actually wearing the T-shirt right now. Have you been there?
No, I haven't.
A beautiful place. Old jail. We were walking around the front offices area, and there's one room that it's called the chair room that it's got some notoriety. People say so. Inside this room is a chair and a single light bulb that hangs over it. That's it. The legend is that if you close the door and reopen it, the chair will change positions. You're not allowed to do that for obvious reasons, because then everyone would be slamming that door. But um, we walked into that room. I knew there was something up with the room, but I didn't know there isn't a specific entity or story that is attributed to whatever happened there. And Kaylee wouldn't even let me get away from her. She's like, "No, you're staying next to me," and she wanted to get out of there almost as quickly as we got in. Something was very disturbing to her. I thought it was creepy because it was a creepy room, but she was not okay, so we left the room. And then later on, we ran into a ghost hunter that had like a his laptop and a projector set up and was showing us some of his photos and showed us some of the scratch marks that had been left on people in that specific room. I'd not heard of that happening. And one of the pictures, he said a guy that was like me, when I was a skeptic, he walked in and said, "I don't believe in any of this nonsense. If something's here, scratch me." And he had scratches on his neck, scratches on his back. He slept in the car that night.
Hmm.
So I find it I think that was a lot scarier and a lot more meaningful to us because we didn't know that whatever entity lives in that room is an absolute menace, and we just kind of walked in there thinking, oh, we might see, cool show with the chair.
Hmm.
And I later learned that it was likely a guard's quarters. So my theory is like, like the Stanford prison experiment, like the prison guards tend to become more sadistic than the uh, murderers that they're, keeping track of. So I'm guessing that whoever was in there was probably like a prison guard who was very disturbed and very sadistic. Probably enjoyed hurting people.
Well, I guess I was going to say, I think one of my theories, just from how you're describing it, might be like a torture room or an interrogation room or something of that nature.
Yeah, and I thought it might have been that too. I thought it might have been solitary just with the chair, but when I asked around, it's not like this was in like the office block up at the front of the prison, not necessarily in the back where the inmates were. So I don't think they ever brought inmates back there. So unless like it was like like a really bad like off the books torture chamber or something. Like I don't know if we'll ever really know. But
Well,
that's
that's
a
the
good theory.
unfortunate part. Yeah, like I said, my brain's always turning, especially when it comes to paranormal stuff. I've always got some theory that's popping around in my head, and I'm always asking why. I always want to know why. It's not necessarily because I don't believe people or anything like that. It's just I want to know their logic behind it so I can formulate either a different opinion or a better opinion. Not better than them, but better for myself.
Yeah, makes sense. I too probably share the whole like like insane curiosity thing. Like if I see something, I need to know. Like I want to explain it, and that's why I like the unexplained because that's still stuff we don't know. And I mean, the answer could be ghosts and psychics and Illuminati. That's cool. It could also be something totally terrestrial and explained by science, and that's also very cool. But whatever the answer is, I want it.
Yes. And I think that's why all paranormal investigators are kind of in this is that we want the answers, but we know we're never going to find them. And I kind of think that's what keeps us hooked.
Yeah, I can't wait to go like do more of this. It's been like if you could have told 16-year-old me I'd be running around America hunting ghosts, like I don't know what I'd have done.
It's cool to think about. I mean, it's definitely neat. I've always been kind of into this stuff, kind of like you said, but my family was very much into it and kind of supported my thought processes a lot, which is kind of where a lot of my theories have stemmed from of years and years of just wondering why and how. So one more theory I'm going to shoot at you before I let you go.
Shoot.
What's your thought? What's your thought on aliens?
What's my thought on aliens? I as crazy as I'm going to sound saying this, like yes, I do believe in aliens. I I'm not entirely sure they're abducting people and making crop circles. I do think the government might know about it, and there has been like stuff that they've put out that doesn't fully add up to me. So I would say that as I would say they're very possible. Not confirmed, but very possible.
What would you think if I told you that I think that we're the aliens?
I could see that. I've heard that theory.
Most people get really tripped up when I say that. They think I'm nuts, which is probably accurate in the same sense, but
I mean, have you heard of the theory of panspermia for how life originated?
no.
So you know how like it's like known that Mars used to be able to support life.
Yep.
There is a theory that like an asteroid or a comet or something crashed into Mars, and there was like microscopic biological matter on some of the like debris that was blasted into orbit, which in turn flew and like landed on Earth, and that we origin actually came from like we were originally Martian microbial life that you know just ended up in a different environment and evolved to suit that environment.
You know, that theory is probably one of the only ones that makes sense in my head.
It it makes a lot of sense to me, honestly, just because like we have two habitable planets right next to each other, and like why does one have life and the other one doesn't?
Yes. And I have a very hard time believing that a Big Bang created life and sustained life at that. that's just my, like, what came first, the chicken or the egg kind of debate. But
I'm a big like fan of the black hole theory, but like we can't observe, so we don't know. We there's a quote that I love. We could be some alien science project that's sitting on a jar and you got a C on it.
yes, I actually had that conversation. I'm not even kidding today.
Small world.
It really is like that. If anything, that should have been a sign because, like, honestly, like it was completely blown out of the water and so random that this person brought it up, and I was like, "Where did this even come from?" And apparently, it was to spiral into whatever this conversation was going to, because that's just too ironic to not be. I was like, "Yeah, we're probably just a science experiment," but I mean, you took it a little farther than I did, and they kind of laughed, but.
Yeah, and there is also the whole like computer simulation theory, which that's a whole other rabbit hole to dive down. But like that's another one I've heard.
Yeah, and that goes into being correlated with manifestation and a whole other slew of things that could be categorized as that, which I
Yeah,
cannot think of his name, but he was in the 50s, I think, or 40s, and he essentially did this big spiel about manifestation and how that we're where you create our own realities and all of that.
yeah. Say there was actually another story concept I played with. It never really got anywhere. Maybe I'll dig it up one day. Maybe I won't. It was like it was one of those like urban fantasy, like witches in modern day, Salem stories. Pre- they're kind of a dime a dozen, but I was thinking, what if like these like Wiccan spells and like pagan characters, like what if that's actually the code for which our reality, like our computer simulation reality is written, and like by learning and like writing in this language, you can actually like alter reality, and that's where the magic comes from.
Oh, well, that's a very interesting theory, and that brings me back to the pyramids with all of the hieroglyphics and things that are written on the pyramids.
Yeah, yeah, isn't there like a room under the Sphinx or something? I remember reading a thing about it a long time ago, but I don't fully remember.
Oh, that I'm not sure of.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something up with the pyramids.
Oh, there's definitely something. I mean, there's so many theories about where they came from and how they formed and all of that, but
What do you think
it's,
Napoleon saw? I have to ask.
I'm not sure. I mean, there's everything had to come from something, right? So I feel like
Mhm.
there's more questions than there is anything else. So I really don't have a definitive answer for that one.
Yeah, I've always wondered like what like why was he so scared, and like why did he refuse to say what it was when he died?
Yeah, I don't know. Going back that far in history, Lord knows what it was, but I mean, that was I mean, there's creatures that have been described that nobody knows what they are, seen again. So who knows?
Yeah, yeah, and especially that far ago. Like I saw a thing like putting it into perspective. We still had woolly mammoths like walking the earth at the time the pyramids were built. Like it wasn't a long time ago. It was like a really really long time ago. So a lot could have been altered. A lot could have changed. Like the world, the universe probably didn't look anything like they do now.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he could have saw a bear and thought that was the scariest thing he's ever seen in his life. You know, it could
That
be something that's like very common now that wasn't back then.
never really had that thought. See, maybe like a benign explanation is the better way to look at that story. Who knows?
I didn't mean to ruin your theories there.
No, you're good. You're good. Like I said, it's still an interesting story if that's the case. It's just not. We got
Yeah,
an
just
answer, and that's what counts.
right. Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been very entertaining and
Yes, it has been.
definitely
Thank you
got
for
my
having
brain
me.
moving. Yeah, of course. Thank you for taking the time to sit here and chat with me and listen to my random rambles and my brain farts and all of
Same.
that. But yeah, this is really cool, and your books seem very cool. If you want to shout them out one more time before we end it, just so everybody has it fresh in their mind for the end here. And
Yeah. Yes. If you want to read my books, they're called the Lightning War Saga. You can get them through Faycore Publishing. I'm on Facebook and I'm also on TikTok. You can find out where to purchase them via Books to Read. Amazon and Barnes and Noble currently print them. So, you know, hop onto Barnes and Noble, get yourself a copy of both of them. Not a lot of people have purchased or read them, but everybody who has told me they're absolutely incredible, and I'm really trying to get the word out. So I would appreciate any support I could maybe pull out of this. So thank you in advance.
yeah, of course, definitely. I'm always about helping everybody else get their name out there and kind of, I've got an okay-ish following at this point. So hopefully you get some more sales, and I'll definitely be looking into them now that I've kind of got a bit more of you, I guess, out of them and your perspective and your thoughts and how you came about writing the books and things. I always think that that's interesting to figure out how writers thought while they were writing. So like I said, I really do appreciate you taking the time. This was a very interesting conversation and definitely got my brain moving, which is the conversations that I enjoy the most. So thank you
Yes.
again.
Yes, this was fun.
And if you ever want to come back on again, even if it's just for ghost stories or if you have another couple books that you're putting out, then just let me know and I'd be happy to have you again.
Yes, the third Lightning War book should be coming out in the near future. And my partner and I are also planning another paranormal adventure. That's still kind of in the planning stages, so I don't want to talk too much about that yet. But once I do know a bit more, um, I'll also talk more about it. Oh, I also have a travel blog that details the experiences we had in Velisca. If you'd like to take a look at that as well,
Oh, cool. Where's that at?
it's
Or do
called
you just have
Coaster.
it as a, oops, go ahead.
Yeah, it's called Coaster Vivor. I'm pulling it up now. Coaster Vivory, COASTERVIVOR.blogspot.com. And if you go under 2025, it was in July. The trip report is called Butchered My Iowa Plans, Part 1, Velisca Axe Murder House. And we did it
Okay.
true crime podcast style, similar to this. Like normally I just write my trip report. I'm an author, that's what I do. But her and I actually got on and had a Zoom call and went over the pictures together, and you'll be able to see it told through both of our perspectives, and it was a lot of fun to do. So if you want to see more about that, that's also an option.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously I've talked to her before and she was this real sweet girl. She was awesome to talk to. Her and I have actually been in contact a little bit too, about some other things. She's kind of in my neck of the woods. I live in New York as well. So,
Yep.
um, it's pretty neat to be in contact with both of you guys. So yeah, I'll definitely check into that. And yeah, thank you again. I really can't say it enough, and I appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you too. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Have a good rest of your day.
You as well.
All right.
Take care.
You too.
As I wrap up my time with you today, I hope the ideas I've shared here on Beyond Logic with Tiffany have provided a fresh perspective, challenging you to think a little differently about the world. Before you go, I have a request. I'd love for you to share this episode with one friend, colleague, or family member who you think needs to hear this specific conversation. Spreading the word is the best way to help the Beyond Logic community grow. To stay connected with everything I do and get continuous content throughout the week, make sure you follow me on all my platforms. Facebook is where my community gathers. Join the conversation, share your thoughts on the episode, and get exclusive behind-the-scenes content and Q&As. If you're on YouTube, head over to my channel to watch the full video version of this podcast and check out extended interviews and deep dives. For short, impactful, and shareable clips, follow me on TikTok. You can find all three platforms easily by searching for Beyond Logic with Tiffany. Until next time, keep questioning the narrative, keep exploring the possibilities, and stay beyond logic.